Aloha, welcome to Makahiki screencast number 3. As always, I'm here with George,
Hello?
and just having kind of a Wayne's World moment here.
I feel like we're podcasters now.
So let's see, what are we going to do today? Well, we can look at the agenda. And we've gone through quite a few things. We've gone through the top-level directory structure. We've gone through requirements.txt. We've done the installation. We've run and tested the system. We've talked about the script library. What we haven't done is talk about the database schema structure, but I think we're not going to get to that yet.
I think that will come out as part of the code.
Right, okay. So today we're going to I think we're going to delve down into the code. And depending on how far we get through with the code, then I think the next time through maybe we'll do a use case of modifying the About page to show kind of how things go. So that's hopefully what will happen.
Right.
With that, we can get rid of PowerPoint. Always a joyful moment. And I'll bring up Eclipse. And still not that satisfied with this plugin, but it could be worse. Okay, so last time we went through all these top-level directories, and the directory that we didn't go through was the apps directory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I know that tell us about, just for those of us like me that don't know that much about Django or Python modularity and so forth. Briefly, how does the apps thing work?
So the apps are just like Python packages, more or less. That's what they resolve to. The Django also uses like this concept of apps to like each of these things have like their own little like model view controller type stuff in them. So it's kind of like separating the different types of things you want to do. And so and each of those things have model definitions and controller stuff, and sometimes templates as well.
Okay.
As we'll take a look.
Okay, so we'll have so with apps we're going to see some MVC stuff.
Right.
And some amount of modularity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that's good. Okay, so where should I notice in the apps directory we have components, lib, pages, and tests. So why don't you start by telling us.
Yeah, I think the test one is relatively new, but I can at least talk about the other three. Components. Well, first we had this idea of, let me start with pages first, because I think that's like the most direct one. So like all the top level pages more or less have a app in pages.
Okay.
So like landing, like activities, the home page, stuff like that. So all that stuff is in pages. The components directory is kind of like things that don't have like their own pages, but they're like supports. So they're like things like the underlying like activities, like system, like the model definitions and stuff. There's like quests where there's no like quest page, and so quests quests live in components, and like user profiles and stuff like that are also in components. And lib is kind of like this third party libraries that we use.
Okay, so this is probably worth even writing down. So we have apps.components. Well, we'll start with apps.pages.
Okay.
And so the idea there is that there is, I guess, let's see. So we have one, oh, shoots. Okay, so we have one, sorry while I get my Windows situation together. So it looks like we have one subdirectory, one app, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
One app per top level page. And then we have some of these view things which we'll find out about. But the first thing I want to ask is, in Makahiki 2, do we want to have a fixed set of pages?
Right.
Should that be defined into the architecture, or should the set of pages themselves be extensible, or should that be Makahiki 3? What do you think in terms of?
I think in terms of Makahiki too, I would imagine that a lot of the things will get combined. Like if you look in components, there's like the activities like definitions are in there, and there's also the view activities thing in pages. Certainly in Makahiki too, I don't understand why you would have like one or the other. Like you would need to have both. So I would imagine that they get like wrapped into like one like big component. So I don't know if there's like a set amount of pages where they're just like pluggable things that you put in, more or less. And
yeah, I'm just wondering whether we want to hardwire. I think that there still will definitely exist this notion of a page, obviously, and there will exist this notion of things that aren't really connected directly to any single page. You know, so these underlying services is kind of what I think of. You know, which would be probably be in apps, but not necessarily be directly connected to a page. But I just wonder, is it gonna complicate things for us intellectually and design-wise to say that there are no fixed set of pages? You know, like maybe we need something to hang our hat on design-wise, and that we can rely upon. You know, so that's kind of my. And these are, of course, all the top-level pages, right? So kind of so for example, in the Smart Grid game,
there's there's a Smart Grid, and then there's like the stuff inside of it, like when you click on something, like the interior.
Yeah. And where would that live, just out of curiosity? Does that live somewhere down in components, or does that live somewhere down in pages?
Right now it lives somewhere in pages.
Yeah. So, because we could think in Makahiki 2 of having a static set of top-level pages. And then you populate those top-level pages however you want. And you may choose to not even have a particular page be available. So any given page could be...
Yeah, like maybe you just want energy display, so you only need one page or something.
Right. I'm just wondering whether... And then what you put on any of these particular pages is completely flex. You know, that would be completely configurable by fiddling with the templates and so forth.
Right. So, yeah, maybe...
And then in Makahiki 3, if we decide we want to... I mean, this is... You know, we could always kind of... People needed more pages. We could always define more static top-level pages, and then people can hide them. You know, they could be invisible by default or something like that. But I'm just nervous about the amount of invisibility associated with not having some kind of fixed top-level structure to build off of. So, anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a nice end goal. I don't know. Yeah, right now if we have.
Yeah, for the fall, it seems to me, in terms of our requirements for the fall, we certainly could fix the set of top-level pages, and we're not going to get anybody upset.
Right.
And it would only be people beyond the fall. So maybe that's the answer right there, is we should kind of not introduce extra generality that we don't have a clear customer for at this point. Okay, so we have this apps.pages. I can see home, landing, mobile, news, status, which is 5 pages. I don't see profile.
It's view profile. Further down.
Okay, so tell me the difference between why some things say view underscore and other things don't.
In some of the cases, it is not terribly consistent for some of them. But like for activities, like if you look in components, like the first thing you see is activities, and Django has this thing where they don't like two apps to be named the same. So like for activities, there's like a components activities package, and then there's like a pages dot view activities being the other one. And it's mostly because if they both have models, the way the name of the table is generated is based off of the app name. So you could, if two things were named the same.
Okay. I don't mind. I mean, having requiring a unique name for apps is, and I assume like kind of there's no package prefix. The app name is the directory immediately above where the code lies for it. It's not kind of a whole package level. It's not a qualified name.
Right.
So one idea would be to so I guess in some cases what you're saying, the view prefix is to distinguish
from a component of the same name.
A component with the same name from this is weird indentation from the corresponding page, i.e. activities profile. Is that probably
prizes and profile.
Prizes profile. Now in other cases you were hinting that this isn't the case all the time.
In other cases just I don't know, it's just the way it was named, I guess. Like energy, there's no like underlying model for energy.
In other cases it was arbitrary.
Yeah.
So let me propose this. Let me ask this. Could in Makahiki 2 could we name all of the apps in pages using name underscore page?
Yeah.
So then it would look like home underscore page activities underscore page. It's basically adding the prefix of the next higher thing, but at least then, because this to me, before you said that, I was like, what the heck?
Right.
I don't, this must really have some semantic meaning, and it turned out to be like just relatively random. We'd have home activities, news, so canopy, energy, help. Okay, so these are actually all the top level.
More or less. The one kind of nebulous one is mobile, because mobile was like its own.
Oh, mobile
was like its own separate thing. So.
Right. Okay, but that we're going to get rid of that one.
Right.
Okay, so mobile page app will go away in Makahiki 2. All right. Well, so that's really good information. Do we want to delve into these, or should we go through the other ones at the top level before we?
Let us go through the others.
Okay.
For now.
Okay. Where should we go next?
Let's look at components, because I guess there's a lot of stuff going on in components. So.
Okay.
When you're already looking at activities, you can tell.
Yeah, this is where I was just randomly opening files to see if I'd get errors or not. Okay, so all right, so in components, wait a second, we have a whole bunch of. In fact, let me go into. So here we are in components.
And so there's a lot of stuff. I mean, these are a lot of the supporting cast behind the pages.
This is the guts of the whole darn thing right here. Okay, so this is apps.components. Okay. So these are not pages, but these are basically all the underlying, I want to call them services.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether that's a good name.
I don't know.
Or a different name. Component is kind of a modularity. It's the meaning of a component is kind of a modularity related concept, whereas service is more of a behavioral level concept. I don't know which we want to do, but anyway, maybe we should just go through them. Do you want to just go through them a little bit?
Sure.
Each of them. So activities is
right. This is the underlying. This is the activities stuff. So all the model definitions for activities are in there.
Now, when we say activity, are we actually referring to the smart grid game?
Yes, or the stuff in the smart grid game.
Okay. So what I'm going to suggest is that activities somehow gets encapsulated into the smart grid gamelet or whatever the heck that thing widget. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, but that's what that stuff is there. Okay, analytics.
So analytics is one of those.
Actually, wait. Let me just do this. So we got. Okay, nothing. I don't know. We'll come back to that. Okay, so then analytics.
So this was created relatively recently, like when we had all of the log files and we decided to put them in the database. So we created an analytics app, and basically the content of the analytics app is a bunch of the model definition for the logs, and we had a few migrations to change things.
Uh-huh.
Other than that, I would imagine that admin pie is pretty much empty.
Okay. Okay.
API. So this is artifact of a long time ago when we thought about having an API that other people can plug into. So it's kind of laid fallow for a while.
Right. So at some point we were thinking of like a RESTful interface to Makahiki, so we could actually ask Makahiki for stuff.
Right.
And get it back.
For like standing state, like when we were going to do like the billboard thing, like it was going to be something else.
Right. Interesting. Do we want an API in Makahiki too?
Again, it's like one of those nice things. I mean, what is the...
We didn't use it in Makahiki 1.
Right, and there's nobody like, banging down our door asking for an API at all.
So, vestigial code could be eliminated for Makahiki 2. All right, I'm down with that. The less the better. Anything we can get rid of. We have enough new stuff. Ask the admin.
Right. So this is the thing that like you see the little button in the top right corner, the send feedback.
Right. Uh-huh.
That's so it's not a page. It exists on every single page, so it lives inside of here.
Oh, so this implements the send feedback. I guess widget.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how, like, what are, is there going to be a widget directory? Is there going to be a gamelet directory? I'm trying to, like, load all these different things in my head and say, how do they get rearranged?
Right. Ask an admin thing, like, I don't know. It seems like almost a requirement. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't.
Oh, we definitely want to have it.
Yeah.
It's not a question of whether we want to have it.
I mean, in terms of the custom games for everybody else, like, I don't know. I guess somebody could just put up a site and not have any contact information.
Oh, I see what we could almost hardwire that into the page.
Right. Unless there's a reason not to. Right.
Unless someone had some kind of layout. Maybe they wanted it someplace else or something.
Maybe. Yeah. It's almost a required component.
Right. Well, we could certainly. It seems to me that we're going to have kind of these default templates, and that would just go in there. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The next one is cache.
That's an interesting one. Oh, okay. I remember why I did this. So Django has like a built-in cache framework. There's no Django has this like built-in cache framework. You just put in the settings and you set it up. But we had this idea where we wanted to cache certain elements of the page. Like we don't want to cache the entire page. Like we don't want to cache the entire activities page. Because it's user dependent and stuff like that.
Right.
So we had this idea to be able to cache parts of the page, and then we needed a way to invalidate that cache whenever something changes. And so that's just what this package has. Is that it has a utils file that just you can give it like a template fragment, and it'll invalidate the cache for that fragment based on username or whatever.
Is this made obsolete by memcached?
No, we needed it for memcached because
Because we don't know when things get
right
stale.
We needed a way to tell memcached, hey, something has changed. We need you to invalidate the cache. So like the
Okay.
use case is typically like, like somebody like goes into a smart grid, they do an activity, and they submit something. We need to invalidate the cache for the smart grid game. So as part of saving that activity, it says, okay, invalidate the
I see.
cache fragment
I
for
see.
that.
Okay. Okay. So there's some little. How do you, just out of curiosity, how do you communicate back and forth between memcached? Like, do you have some internal data structure that this?
I guess we can take a look at utils, but it's part of like.
Okay, let's come back. Yeah. Oh, okay. I say.
Okay.
Then we'll get back to it
Yeah.
since it's okay. So then we got Canopy.
Yeah, so Canopy has its own like separate models. In large, like they do have like similar equivalents to others. Like there's like a Canopy news feed, right? That has like posts and stuff, but that's separate from the.
So tell me how this Canopy app.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide what goes in this Canopy app versus what goes in the View Canopy app?
The view can like the easiest, I guess, distinction is basically like the components were like the models more or less in a large part. Like they're the
So anything with state.
yeah, and they don't have like the view and the controller parts live like in the pages. Like the pages, like for the most part, handle that stuff.
Okay.
And so yeah, these are the underlying data stuff, as well as like there's like some admin.
Okay. So
files in there.
so there's always a component that's connected to. The page stuff is pretty dumb, I guess what you're saying.
Right. I mean, it looks at the models and it does the controller. It sets up the views and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When you go to views in the URLs, they're always looking at the pages, and then the pages start like looking at stuff from the
components.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Okay. So this is the internals of Canopy.
Mhm.
Okay. And then
energy goals. We have the data.
just saying, just to put it out there,
Mhm.
needs to be redesigned for Makahiki 2.
Oh, for sure.
We never really. It didn't work very well, the
Right.
Canopy.
We need to spend more than like 1% of our time on it.
Right. And so I'm hoping that we actually get some cycles to, think about this, not just kind of port it. Okay, energy goals.
Yeah, so
It's the energy goals.
right, relatively straightforward.
Okay. And then floors.
It's the lounge or lounges as we call them in the actual competition, but yeah, they're the dorms and
So this
Floors.
just implements the grouping mechanism.
right.
Okay. We'll probably call it groups. I think we'll have to, because a competition could be building versus building.
Right.
Floor v floor. I mean, I think that this is in fact even too specific a term for.
Right.
Okay, help topics.
Yeah, so the help widgets and stuff have like some you can edit like the contents of the help in like the admin interface. So that was just like the model definitions for.
Oh, I'm okay. So when I see an admin.py, that's the code that's used in the admin interface.
Yes,
That thing
yes.
to okay. Very cool. Logging.
Yeah, for the most part, it's just like some middleware to support like intercepting all of the requests that go through the system and dumping it to the log files. There is a lot of view code that because for like the JavaScript interactions, they need to be able to ping like the log and say, this JavaScript action happened.
Oh, right, right. Okay.
So you see, in some of these components actually do have views, but they're not like, they're like kind of like behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
Not actually
pages
related.
Okay. Okay.
So
then now, okay, so now we're gonna get to all these Makahiki underscore things. Now tell me why. What does that Makahiki underscore prefix mean?
Again, I guess it's somewhat arbitrary in some ways. Although, right, like for auth, I couldn't name it auth because there's already a Django like auth package that we use. So I need to put something else there. The avatar code was ported over from the Panax avatar code, and so sometimes they would conflict with each other if they were named the same.
Conflicts with Django or Panax related modules.
Right.
Well, that's frustrating.
Yeah. But again,
I mean, that was the whole thing in Java, having packages,
right?
So you didn't get. I mean, it's a little. I'm feeling a little upset with Python that.
Right, or the Django, like they don't use the full qualifier. Then again, I guess Django is their package structure was always very loose to begin with. Like by default, you could put all of the apps in the top level.
Yeah.
Directly.
Well, this just seems like a language level thing to me, right? That, of course, you can qualify when you do an import.
Right. These are when you look up these are components dot Makahiki auth.
Yeah.
So it's more of the Django thing where the apps need to be all named different.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's an app, Django app. Okay. So I should, instead of saying modules, I should say apps.
Right.
Okay. Oh, right, because it's going to make these database tables.
Right.
Okay. So auth is authentication?
Yeah, it's just some overrides for the CAS authentication. It's we use a Django CAS plugin. But we need to change a few things, so it's just some overrides to change that.
Okay. I wonder if, we should be calling these things widget or...
Right.
I mean, I find it very, very confusing to have prefixes just in the case of
right
there happens to be some other package somewhere else. Like I'm desperately wanting to either rename auth into something else, or
sure,
or else prefix everything in order to arg. I guess if apps have to be unique, then every single app needs to be prefixed. Is the really the only solution, unless you want to go start calling this auth2 or authn,
right,
or some crazy that kind of sucks. Of course the prefixing sucks too. It's all
either we prefix them all or we have to come up with clever names. I don't know.
Right
It's the way it is.
Okay, so Makahiki. I take it you're not as upset by this whole naming thing as I am. I mean, the reason why I'm upset with it is because I'm seeing this all for the first time.
Right.
So the names are really crucial to me to get a grip on what the system means. Whereas you wrote it, so it's just
Right. And I'm looking at this and thinking about it diffly is things could have been done differently.
Oh, right, and yes, and that's the other thing is that I mean this structure is somehow reflects the developmental history and design history of the system.
Right,
So I'm not expecting it to not have certain idiosyncrasies just based upon we were doing this, like the API thing or whatever. So, and that's all fine. I mean, every system does that, and that's why it's fun to have version 2, kind of start over, because then you get a fresh slate and
we have kind of a design a more complete design.
Yeah, we rationalize it, now that we've kind of explored the requirement space and we realize this is the functionality that we need.
Right.
But in a year, Makahiki 2 will be just as idiosyncratic as this. It's just kind of the nature of the beach. Nature of the beach. Nature of the beast. Okay, so avatar.
Mhm.
Avatar.
Avatar. So it's just like user pictures, more or less.
Okay.
So a lot of this code was ported over from the Panax avatar stuff. So it still works without Panax, more or less.
Good. Okay. More or less, or
It does.
totally. Okay. And then badges.
Yeah, so we have a badges app, but we needed a place to like define the actual like behavior of the badges themselves. So yeah, the important one is just really the user badges, and it contains like the badges definitions and stuff, and yeah, the badges definitions.
Okay. Okay. And Makahiki base.
Base I am not too proud of because we've thrown a lot of stuff in there, so there's
Really?
like a lot of support things
Okay.
like going in there.
So base was kind of the app of last resort.
Right.
If you didn't know where else to put it, it went here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, everybody has a utils,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. So,
Right.
so any obvious things that in retrospect, when you look at that directory, you think, oh, we should move some of this stuff elsewhere?
No, I think I have to take a deeper
Okay.
look at some of them to remind me exactly.
Okay. Then Makahiki Facebook.
Yeah, this package was, well, back in the day we had this idea where we were actually storing Facebook information because we needed to asynchronously post, I guess, given times. So this component is there to be able to save it to the database.
Facebook. Oh, stores Facebook info. What? So, for example, what's Facebook info?
The important thing being like ID, like the user ID. But then I thought, well, I have access to this info object, so I'll just take everything because I don't know. So it's like, first name, last name.
Oh, there's other junk. So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
In order to support auto posting of Makahiki stuff to Facebook. I mean, this is probably something that even if we're not using it now, if the code's written, it's kind of a nice
Right.
service to, somebody may want to do it, or we'll, if we figure out better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that sounds pretty useful. Notifications.
Right, so those are the little yellow and red bars that you see, like that have little stuff in them, like your activity has been rejected, or you completed this quest, or whatever.
Great.
So it's what's in there.
Okay. And profiles.
So profiles are pretty important in that, like in Django, like you get a user model like out of the like it's just built in more or less, but you can't extend the user model, and so they have this concept of every user has a profile, and so you can extend the profile like however you wish. So the user model itself doesn't have like a points attribute. The user's profile has like records their points and their floor relations and stuff like that.
Okay, so this is a Django when you say profile here, you're really referring to a.
Well, I mean, it is our custom profile code, but this was there because Django doesn't allow us to like modify the user models, so it provides us with like a profile. It says like user get the profile like points to like the Makahiki Profiles app.
Right. Okay, so this is just additional info. I
Right.
see. Okay. Yeah. Okay, then themes.
Right. So we had this idea of themes, and there's like the theme switcher and stuff like that.
Okay, so themes is probably going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And then prizes.
Prizes is pretty straightforward. And there's like the raffle prizes and even the overall prizes, or the round prizes on the left side, like the individual winner and stuff, they're also stored in the database somewhere. So.
Okay. I wonder whether we want to have separate. Would it make sense to have a? Well, we're going to have to, right? Because we'll have so prizes will become, split into raffle game app and the, what do we call them? Overall or competition app or something. Okay. Then we have quests. And that's all pretty much just what it
pretty
is.
straightforward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Resources. That's a little generic. What does that mean?
Oh, but this was back in, what is that, alpha days. Remember when we were collecting all of these like articles and stuff?
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, those were called resources back then.
Okay.
And so that's what that app contains.
Okay. So from alpha version.
Yes, a long time ago.
Remember Nate? Not needed anymore. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Standings.
And standings is this thing that I created for. This also goes back to alpha, when we needed like a certain like standing structure for like the points. Like we wanted to show like the first place user.
I'm just realizing that that's what that
Yeah,
prizes
yeah.
thing is. It's a standings prize. Okay, so this is just doing our scoreboards and stuff.
Yeah, but it was only like back in like the alpha version. When it was,
Oh.
like there was like that. Was it at the top? There was like we wanted to show the first place user, the person above you,
Oh,
then
jeez.
you, then the
Okay.
person below you.
So this is also vestigial
Yep.
code. Okay, good. Also vestigial from alpha version. Yay. More stuff we can get rid of. Okay, so that is the components
Yep.
directory. Should we go on to lib?
Sure. Not a whole
Okay.
lot there. So Brabion is the badges application, or just
Oh,
that's what it's called.
badges. Okay. And that that provides some junk that
Right.
who knows what it is, but it's going to help us with badges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then Django cache probably does exactly cast does what we
Right.
think it does.
Task authentication.
And then mini detector. What is
Yes,
that?
this does mobile detection
Oh.
things. So they like built up this library of user agents that it checks against when a request comes in. It checks against, okay, is this request mobile?
Okay.
So it looks up all these user agents, and so yeah, that's.
Are we going to need that or not? Probably not. We're going to do that in
Probably not.
HTML5,
Right.
right? We'll have the @media thing. So not needed for Makahiki. Makahiki 2.
Right.
And that brings us to test.
I have no idea what's in test. That's not new to me. Oh, okay.
Now you do.
Now I remember.
Okay.
But it was like a one-off thing. Like, there was a when we were doing when we were trying to figure out ways to like benchmark or like stress test the system. Like if we tried to use the
JMeter?
no, there was like a thing on the side. I think it's like Django debug toolbar. I believe is what
Mm.
it's called. And it shows like information on the side, like the SQL queries and stuff. But I had trouble getting it working for a long time. So
Okay.
there's another approach, which is to use a profile where you attach like an argument to the URL, and it just like dumps out this like plain text file of like the SQL queries and like the stack and the things that it went through.
Oh,
and stuff
wow.
like that. So-
Okay. So this test directory is exploratory code, experimental code that
Yeah.
may or may not,
Yeah,
Okay.
it might be useful.
Okay. So I'll say experimental code. Maybe we need maybe this should be called apps.experimental.
Sure.
Because testing, if you say test it, of course
Right,
people
right.
want to think of it as a functional test.
Right, right.
But if you say experimental, then it gives more the vibe of maybe I'm gonna be happy with this and
Right,
maybe
right.
not. Alrighty, that means we've been through the apps directory, and I'm thinking it's good enough
Okay.
for now. Otherwise, we're gonna get all tired and our
Right.
viewers, our many thousands of viewers, will not be happy. So that wraps it up for today. And so I think next time, I still want to see the code. So I think we're going to have to do another session where we look at actual Python. Probably going in. Well, we could go into the pages area first, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I had this idea of like maybe looking at like a certain component or something,
Right.
because some of the components encompass like all levels of like model view controller.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly. So for next time, let's do a depth first. We've been kind of breadth first. We've been
Right,
just
right.
kind of going through, and I think that's no longer going to make any sense. Now we need to take some little piece of the system and look at all the different directories and how. So from breadth first to depth first, we'll take one component and see how it is implemented using a combination of pages level app code and component level, something like that. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, George. We'll see you very soon.